This episode may contain content of a graphic nature, including descriptions of physical and sexual violence against adults, children, and animals. Listener discretion is advised. Hi everyone, I'm Talia.
And I'm Tanya.
And together we are Crimes and Consequences, a true crime podcast. Hi, Tanya.
Hi, Talia.
Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of Crimes and Consequences. This case was suggested to us via email by Sandy A.
Thank you, Sandy.
Yeah, thank you, Sandy. And I never heard of it before. It's pretty sad. Well, they're all sad.
They're all sad.
So, with that being said, I hope everybody's doing splendid. And if you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe or follow button on whatever app you're listening to. And I'm going to get started.
All right, let's do it.
Tanya, in Georgia, there's a small town made up of only 300 people called Santa Claus. Its streets are named after Santa's reindeer. At the edge of town, there's a sign there that says, Santa Claus, the city that loves children. And next to it is a life-size statue of Santa.
Oh, wow. I've never heard of this city.
I know. It's kind of like a touristy town. It's small. It's located about 70 miles west of Savannah, Georgia. And it's a really close-knit community, as you can imagine. They're all in on the theme. It was the early morning hours of December 4th, 1994, when tragedy struck Santa Claus on Dasher Street, leaving the family of 9 called the Daniels in the uttermost state of tragedy. The father of the family, his name was Danny Daniels. He was 47 years old, and he lived with his 33-year-old wife, Kim. They just celebrated their 5-year anniversary that day. Danny had a 16-year-old daughter named Jessica that he had adopted when she was 18 months old, and he'd been married 2 other times, so I'm sure it was during one of those marriages that he adopted her. And Kim had 3 children, and I'm going to give some of them different names. She had Erica, was 10, and twins Brooke and Bryant, they're 8, which Danny had adopted that year. Together, now listen to this, they fostered 3 children, Amanda 9, Corey 4, and Gabrielle, who is 10 months old. Amanda and Gabrielle, whom they called Gabe, were brother and sister, and they'd been neglected by their parents. They hoped to adopt all the children that they were fostering. They obviously loved children.
I mean, they do live in Santa Claus.
Yeah, and they have 7 in their house. They doted on all the children, showering them with love and the sense of being a part of a large family. So I'm going to give you a little background. Danny worked as a mailman on a rural route in the nearby town of Lyons, and he also taught Sunday school and was an avid member of the Mount Vernon Pentecostal Church. They called him Brother Danny. It was about 6 years earlier when Kim and Danny met each other at an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. So I'm assuming Danny had an alcohol problem. Kim, I know, did. She had a really rough life. When I say rough, it was rough. When she was 3, she witnessed her dad being murdered.
Oh, no.
Right?
Oh, that's terrible.
And she was shuffled between foster homes. Kim actually had 4 children before she met Danny. She had Brandy, who was 15, Erica, 10, and twins Brooke and Bryant. Kim fell hard on drugs and alcohol, and she was living with her kids in the car until they got taken away by the state.
Oh, no.
I mean, she reached rock bottom, I think it was around 1990, and showed up barefoot on the doorsteps of a pink mobile home that was also used as a church outreach building. She showed up in her tiny, battered old car with all her worldly possessions in it. And like I said, she was barefoot. She was desperate. She wanted to get her life together and to find God. It was soon after that she met Danny. And Danny helped her get off of drugs, and he helped her regain custody of 3 of her 4 children, Erica, Brooke, and Bryant. And I don't know why she didn't get custody of Brandy, but I know that she had a daughter named Brandy. Kim joined the Mount Vernon Pentecostal Church where she played piano And she's saying, and they made sure all their children went to church and they were active in the church community. That was like a big thing for them. The two married a year later and moved into this ranch-style house. It was at the end of a cul-de-sac, about a half a mile from US 1 in Santa Claus. They didn't have a lot of money because Kim was a stay-at-home mom and he worked as a postman, but they really loved the area that they lived in and they loved the house. They had 2 catfish ponds that surrounded their house, and there were tall pine trees and fields that were between them and their nearest neighbor. You could often find friends over fishing for catfish in their pond, and they had these grapevines that just grew around them, so they would pick grapes.
Oh, that sounds so cute.
Yeah, there were fields, like I said, and migrants planted Vidalia sweet onions by their place. A tragic house fire destroyed their home, but they loved that area so much that they rebuilt it. And it was after they rebuilt their home that they decided to start fostering children. Some of the children they fostered stayed only a few months, and then, they would get returned to their home. One of them was 10-year-old Joanne Heidler. She lived with them for about 45 days until her mother, Mary Mosley, got her shit together enough for Joanne to return home. Joanne had an older brother. His name was Scott, and he was 18, so he was too old to be fostered, but he would often visit his sister Joanne at the Daniels home, and they felt sorry for both children because their mom was unstable. She was an alcoholic who neglected them, and they were always moving around. It was described like they were almost like gypsies moving around. Plus, Scott turned to alcohol and drugs, and that really pulled at Kim's heartstrings, having gone through it herself.
She understands the struggle.
Right. And she feels sorry for Scott. It was around 4 a.m., December 4th, in 1997, when a farmer and his wife woke up because their dog wouldn't quit barking. They looked out the window to see, what is this dog barking at? And when they did, they were shocked to find 3 children in pajamas walking down the dark and desolate Carter Pond House Road. The children were shivering because it was about 50 degrees outside, and they looked traumatized, which you can imagine. They're in this rural area. It's a dirt road. They're in their pajamas, and they're just walking. The farmers immediately took them in and called the police. When the police arrived, the children gave their names. They were Erica, Brooke, and Amanda, and they told the police that they lived on Dasher Street in Santa Claus, and that was about 45 miles away from the farmhouse.
What?
Yeah, so they're a long way from home. They said they didn't know what happened with their parents and their other siblings, but the police were about to find out. 2 police officers were dispatched to the brick home on Dasher Street, and they arrived a little bit before sunlight. Almost every light in the house was on, which seemed odd because it was about 5:15 in the morning, and the front door was ajar. So officers repeatedly yelled into it, "Hey, is anyone here? Is everyone all right?" But they got no answer from the family inside. They started looking through the windows, and in one of the windows, they thought they saw the arm of a young boy sticking out from under a blanket on a bunk bed. The officers knew, okay, something is not right. So they pulled out their guns and they began to make their way through the home, announcing their presence. They could hear a radio playing, and the radio was Danny's alarm that he used to wake up. So he set his alarm, and when it went off, the radio was playing. And they could also hear the sounds of a baby crying as they moved around the house. They ended up finding 4-year-old Corey hiding underneath a table, trembling. They made their way to the master bedroom, and what they saw was gruesome. Danny and Kim lay sprawled out on their bed underneath this white comforter that had some blue flower print, and they were covered with blood. There was blood everywhere. It had been immediately apparent to the officers that they'd been killed by some heavy caliber weapon.
Oh,
and you know what that means.
Oh, no.
You know what that means.
Yeah, very, very large and decimating wounds.
Yes. Baby Gabriel was in his crib in their room.
Oh, no.
He was holding his sheets and crying.
Oh, poor baby.
Down the hallway, not far from the sunken master bedroom. So you have to try to imagine the bedroom, the master bedroom has 2 entranceways. And one, I believe you go through the laundry room and the bathroom and you go down some steps to get to. And then there's another one from a hallway. They saw the body of 16-year-old Jessica Daniels by the master bedroom on those few tiny stairs that there were to get there. She was still in her nightgown, face down, covered in blood, and there was blood all over the hallway carpet next to a desk and a calculator. It was really bad because she'd been shot by a heavy caliber bullet up close in the back of the head.
Oh, no.
It seemed like she was killed while she was trying to get into her parents' room. Now, in the bedroom down the hallway, they found 8-year-old Bryant. And now that was the child whose arm had been sticking out from under the sheet. Brian was laying on his bed and he was cuddling a teddy bear in one arm. He too had been shot by a heavy caliber weapon at close range in the face.
Oh, shit.
And his face was gone. Of course, this had an emotional impact on the police.
Oh, these poor fucking officers.
I mean,
you don't get paid enough to see shit like that.
And they have a 10-month-old and a 4-year-old there that they're trying to deal with. They realized immediately that Bryant, Jessica, Danny, and Kim, they were beyond saving. So they grabbed the 2 young boys and they made sure that they didn't disturb the scene and they left and called for backup, right? Toombs County Sheriff's Department sealed off the home and the surrounding area as the medical examiner, the crime scene techs, and a deputy district attorney arrived. They determined that whoever killed Danny and Kim, Jessica and Bryant, had entered the house through an open bathroom window using a small stepladder from the garden. None of the Daniels' possessions were taken, so it didn't appear that robbery was a motive. But there was one thing missing from that house, and that was Danny and Kim's Remington 1100 semi-automatic shotgun, which Danny actually, they kept it in the gun cabinet in the bedroom.
Really?
So whoever did this creeped into the bedroom, and the door of the cabinet was left open and dusted for fingerprints. Danny was shot multiple times, but it was a shot to the back of the head that killed him.
Ugh.
Now, I heard and read different accounts of what happened to Kim. The one I think is most credible says that she was shot twice, once in the stomach and once in the arm.
Oh, man.
So that wouldn't be an instantaneous death.
No, she suffered.
The master bedroom, that was covered in gore.
Ugh.
There was tissue, blood, bone, and brain matter all over the walls and ceilings.
Oh, man.
And the floor, and the bed, because of the force of the shotgun blast. 8-year-old Bryant shared a bedroom and a bunk bed with little Corey. And now he was that 4-year-old they found huddled under a table. When they examined their bedroom, it was clear that Bryant was sleeping on his stomach on the top bunk, and he was still clinging to that teddy bear when he was shot in the face.
Ugh.
He died instantly, having no idea what was going on. Blood splattered the walls by his head, and there was this picture frame of him, and he had a red cap on, and he was holding a baseball bat, and that had blood on it. Now, why the killer shot Bryant but didn't shoot Corey is a mystery. Down the hallway, they examined 16-year-old Jessica. The force of the shot had blown pretty much her head off.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I mean, that's apparently,
God.
I know nothing about guns, but it's apparently a very massive caliber. Authorities were really stumped by the lack of bloody footprints, given the amount of blood covering the bedrooms and the hallways, and the fact that the killer managed to move 3 small children out of the house, because let's not forget, there were those 3 girls.
Right. They
walking on the road.
And one of them was Bryant's twin.
Yes.
So they're the same age, so why would you kill one and not the other?
It doesn't make
so
sense.
Fucking weird.
The house was searched for fingerprints. The carpets were meticulously vacuumed for trace fibers, and blood and bodily fluids were collected. Just, they're doing the crime scene in the hopes of finding out who this perpetrator was. Homicide investigators found 1,100 Remington shotgun shells around the house. They found 7 in total. And 1,100 Remington shotgun only holds 6 rounds. So whoever fired that gun...
Oh, damn, they reloaded.
Reloaded it.
Holy shit.
In Brian's room, the shell casing lay next to a little toy truck
Oh,
and a boy's jacket on the floor.
man, this is so fucked. I am brokenhearted. This is terrible.
2 casings were found near Jessica. There was one in the bathroom that led into the connecting master bedroom. There was one in the master bedroom that had tissue on it, one in the laundry room, and then there was another one in the couch in the living room.
Really?
Which seems really odd. Almost seems like the killer had moved it. I don't know. Nobody was shot in the living room, but I wasn't there. I don't know. A small Christmas tree sat on the dining room table, and there were dozens of unwrapped presents laying on the floor undisturbed. I know this
is terrible. This
terrible.
is so sad.
They did find a Marlboro cigarette by the back door of the house, and they collected that as evidence. After the crime scene was thoroughly investigated, the morgue wagon came and it took the bodies to the medical examiner's office.
Mm-hmm.
By that time, neighbors were all gathering around just behind the yellow tape. And they got questioned about what they'd heard. Did they see anything the night before? There were only 2 dwellings near the Daniels home because they lived in this cul-de-sac. One was a mobile home, and the neighbors there couldn't see the Daniels house because of the large pine trees that blocked their view. The other home sat on a hilltop, and it was a really big house. Those neighbors could only see the roof of the Daniels home, so no one really saw anything. But one of the neighbors did recall hearing what sounded like gunfire at around 1:45 a.m. that morning.
Well, I would expect that gun to be very loud, too.
Yeah.
It's so big.
I don't think anybody's all that
they're
close,
not close, right? So, yeah.
Investigators could tell by the scene this wasn't a random attack. There's just no way. So there's so many questions. Like, why did the killer murder 2 children, kidnap 3 children, and leave behind 2 more? Why would anybody want to hurt this beautiful couple who took in children and were devoted to God and the church? Like, things like this didn't happen in Santa Claus, the town that loves children. While police were still combing through the crime scene, the 3 kidnapped girls were taken to the hospital, and they were interviewed when they were deemed ready. They had to have some physicals done. This is what they had to say. According to the children, they woke up to the sounds of gunfire. Then a young man they knew as Scott Taylor entered their bedroom holding a shotgun, and he told them there's an intruder that broke into the house and that their mom said for him to get them out, so they needed to leave with him. They got into an unfamiliar black van that had tinted windows, and it was parked in their driveway. What they went through next was just a horrible experience. The 3 girls were driven roughly 15 miles away near the Altamaha River Bridge. Scott, who Erica remembered from occasionally staying with them, he would come there and visit his sister Joanne.
Mm-hmm.
Scott made that 10-year-old get out of the van and walk to a nearby boat ramp. While they were at the boat ramp, he anally raped that poor child.
Are you fucking kidding me? This isn't bad enough? Oh my God.
This is a horrible story.
Oh my God. These poor children.
Her younger sister, Brooke, could see what was happening from her view. After the brutal rape, Erica hysterically begged him to just get rid of the gun because it was scaring her and her sisters. So Scott then drove over the bridge. He stopped the van, and then he threw the gun into the water. On a side note, divers searched the river, but they never found it. Then Scott took the children approximately 45 miles away and dropped them off on that rural dirt road in Bacon County. And that's when they were awakened to the sound of their dog barking incessantly. So let me tell you a little bit about Scott.
What the fuck?
But before I do, we're going to take a quick break.
Oh, man.
Jerry Scott Heidler was born in 1977, and he'd always been odd and sickly. He was sickly. At the age of 4, he had open heart surgery, and his life was very sad. He was shuffled between foster homes along with his sister Joanne, and he had 2 brothers. And he had really poor supervision by his mother, Mary. Mary would later claim it's because she was sick, but child protective workers would say she was an alcoholic. And when they would go over to check on the kids, she would try to cast voodoo spells on them.
What?
She even left a voodoo doll with a pin in it in one of the offices.
That's weird.
As a young child, Scott had an imaginary friend that was a mouse that he carried around with him.
Oh.
One of his foster mothers, her name was Sylvia Boatwright, she recalled how he would always say, "Come on, little mouse," and carry it with him.
Wait, this is really fucking sad.
Jerry was around 11 when he lived with her and he was doing this. And he was deathly afraid of the dark. He feared a knife would come through the ceiling and cut him somehow.
Wow.
He had a lot of difficulties, and he was socially awkward. He was considered an oddball. But Sylvia loved him, and he would call her Boatwright Grandma. Sylvia's daughter, she saw things differently than Sylvia. She described Scott as outright mean and was happy the day that he left her home and went back to his mom's because she was afraid that he would hurt her mom, Sylvia.
Wow.
Scott tried to commit suicide twice, once when he was 11 and again when he was 13. And he ended up at the psychiatric section of the Georgia Regional Hospital to get some mental help. He was so emotionally disturbed that he had to attend a state-run school for children with learning and emotional disabilities. He ended up dropping out in 10th grade. He was never able to keep a job. He just mooched off everyone. By the time he was 20, he had multiple arrests for drunk driving and theft. In fact, he was facing felony charges at the time of the murders. And this is so ridiculous, Tanya. Earlier in 1997, he robbed a store called Taylor's Treasures. And he stole porcelain dolls.
What? What the hell?
Nintendo games, and some knives.
That's just weird.
He also stole a four-wheeler from a garage. For a brief time, Scott babysat for a woman in exchange for living in her home. She said all he did was sit on the couch or work on a broken-down car. But he was fine with the kids. In fact, his presence was very helpful to her.
Really? Bet you when she heard this story, she's like, oh, shit.
She said she couldn't believe it.
Right.
The Daniels had taken pity on him, remember?
Yes.
As I said earlier, he would often come over to their house. Even after they were long done fostering his sister Joanne, who, by the way, for the record, in one of the articles I read, Joanne was supporting her brother. She was 12 and she was smoking a cigarette in the interview.
Oh, no. Oh, man.
It became apparent before the murders that Scott had developed a crush on 16-year-old Jessica Daniels.
Oh, shit.
He would show up at their church and sit by her on occasion, and he would stop by their house and have her come sit on the steps and talk to him. He had some very strong feelings for her. And the Daniels started to think, he's maybe just coming by to see Jessica. And they didn't like that. He's 20. He's got issues. And at one point, a couple months before the murders, Danny spoke with Scott. And he told him it wasn't a good idea for him to keep coming around anymore. He was too old to be hanging out with Jessica. Scott seemed to respect this, and he stopped showing up at their house. But obviously, he was deeply affected by the sense of abandonment. As you'll learn later, he has some issues with abandonment, and you can get that you get that sense, right, when I've just described to you his childhood. Police did a bolo. They were on the lookout for a black Dodge van with tinted windows. That's what the girls described. Then they went to the home of Scott's mother, Mary. She lived with Joanne, a younger son, and Scott's stepdad, whom he didn't get along with at all. That home was about 30 miles away in a town called Alma, and it was government housing that they lived in. They'd only lived there for like 2 months because the family never had any money. The stepdad and Mom, Mary, were, as I said, alcoholics. When they got to the house, as they're driving there, they spot the van they're looking for. And they pull around to the front of the house, and they make eye contact with Scott. You know what Scott does?
Oh, shit, what?
He just turns around and walks back inside like he didn't see him.
Because they'll go away.
They'll just go away. And then his brother walks outside and tries to convince the approaching officers that Scott wasn't there.
Come on now.
It's ridiculous.
Yes.
With a warrant in hand, the investigators searched the Alma house, and they found Scott crouching in the crawl space. He initially refused to come out. Hello. You're going to have to come out of the crawl.
You're going to have to come out.
You're not going to win this one.
No. They're going to wait till the end of time.
So they had no choice. The officers, they drew their weapons, and they pointed at him, and then he realized...
Yeah, oh shit, I better get out.
He needs to get the fuck out. Scott was arrested around 2 p.m. that day, along with his brother, who was charged with obstructing justice. Now, this is sad. It's all sad. Funerals were held for Danny, Kim, Jessica and Bryant, with flowers laid on their side-by-side caskets on Tuesday, December 9th.
Oh.
The Daniels, other 5 children, sat in the front pews.
Oh.
They were protected by police guards. And everyone was crying as the Reverend Ray Wood gave the eulogy, and he just praised Danny and Jessica and Kim. And he talked about how little Bryant had aspired to one day be able to drive the church bus.
Oh.
Then he said something that I thought was really profound. He told the congregation in regards to Scott, "You may hate the deed, but you better love his soul." Then everybody said amen.
Really?
Yeah.
I am not a forgiving person. I think I need to work on that.
I know. You may hate the deed, but you better love his soul. Oh.
That's a hard pill to swallow.
Yes, it is. 20 pallbearers carried the caskets out, and the family was buried. Now, Scott, as I said, was arrested. 90 minutes later, the detectives began to interrogate him. And almost immediately, he confessed the crime, stating, quote, "I killed them all." This is how he said it went down. And it's strange, so you got to follow me on this. Earlier that day, he'd attended the funeral of a stillborn child.
Okay.
He didn't know if the child was his or not. He had this on and off again relationship with an 18-year-old named Marie Spivey. And together they had a 2-year-old son named Joshua. Now, even though Marie was only 18 years old and had a 2-year-old with Scott, she also was married to another man. She got married after Joshua was born. But she continued her relationship with Scott too, hence why no one knew who the father of the baby was. But the baby was born, I believe, on Sunday, the Sunday before, and was a stillborn, which is very sad.
Oh, that is really sad.
On the day the baby was born, he wrote some mumbo-jumbo poem about the baby and made references to the gospel. And he would read it to her over and over again after the baby's birth until the funeral, which was 3 days later. This is the day of the murders. After the funeral, he went back to Marie's parents' house. And then later she dropped him off by his mom's house in Alma. Scott then walked over to his mom's neighbor's house, and the guy's name was Jerry Johnson. Jerry was 59 years old, and he was handicapped. I know he was wheelchair bound from a car accident that happened in 1960.
Oh, damn.
So we're talking 37 years
earlier.
He had a full-time assistant, a helper who lived with him. And Jerry's house was the kind of house where people just showed up in and out, probably guys, because he had a pool table and he had a bunch of games. He didn't know Scott all that well. He knew him, but not all that well. But Scott knew other people that were there, and they were playing pool on the back porch of Jerry's house. While Scott's at Jerry's house, he drank 2 beers. And then around 10:30 p.m., he went back to his mom's home down the street. When he got to his mom's house, he said everybody was just talking about the funeral and the stillborn baby, and it was too much for him, so he stormed out. I don't know what he did for a little while, but eventually, when Jerry and Jerry's live-in assistant went to sleep, Scott broke into Jerry's house and he stole the van. So that's where the van came from. And that van was used to help Jerry get around,
Right.
It's really shitty.
Yeah.
He also took a wooden box that contained Jerry's bank statements and his Social Security disability check.
Oh, shit.
Along with some cash he had laying around. And that's when Scott drove to the Daniels home. According to Scott, after using the garden stepladder to hoist himself into the Daniels bathroom, he went and crept into the master bedroom and got the gun from the gun cabinet and loaded it. I don't think he did it in the master bedroom. I don't know.
Right.
But I feel like it would wake somebody up. He says he then crept into Brian's room and shot him in the head first. He described it as being in a dreamlike state. He was someplace else until he heard Jessica yell out his name as she ran down the hallway. She was running towards her parents' room when he shot her in the back of the head, and obviously it killed her instantly. He told detectives he recalled the feeling of the gun kicking back and hurting his shoulder, and the blast from the gun ringing his ears and hurting his ears. He then went into the master bedroom and shot Kim multiple times and Danny multiple times. Now, it doesn't really make that much sense because you would think that Danny would have gotten up
Like
by
heard
that,
the shot.
and he was still laying in his bed. Like, Jessica has time to run into
Yeah,
the
you're right.
bedroom.
Yeah, I don't
or
think it
towards
happened that way.
And then think about it. He's in the master bedroom where the gun is. You would think that, I don't know. This is what he said went
Right.
down. He claims he doesn't know why he kidnapped Erica, Amanda, and Brooke out of the house. But I think that the motive, given what he did to Erica, is pretty clear.
Maybe because they were girls, too.
And he ended up raping her.
Yeah.
He left behind Corey, who was old enough to identify him.
Right.
Corey actually said something like, he said something, but he didn't say Scott. But I'm sure at some point he would have been able to identify him.
Mm-hmm.
After the kidnappings and rape, do you know what Scott went and did?
What?
He went back to his mom's house and played video games with his younger brother.
What?
While they were playing, he just had this conversation with his brother and asked if he ever killed anyone.
Hey, man. And now he's only 20, right?
Yeah.
So he's asking his younger brother.
Yeah, I believe it's his younger brother.
Okay. Well, hey, man, if you ever
Even if it's his older brother.
I know. Hey, have you ever killed anyone?
Well, his brother said no. And then Scott said, quote, "Killing gives you a rush, makes you want to go out and kill more people."
Oh,
end
that's
quote.
Nice.
According to the sheriff, Scott showed no signs of remorse and, quote, slept like a baby his first night in jail.
Wow.
His mom was brought in and he was talked to his mom and he only confessed to killing Kim. She refused to believe that, by the way. She said later that he would have never killed that family. He loved them too much. If he was going to kill anyone, it would have been his stepdad.
Which is probably true. I'm sure he wanted to kill his stepdad, but come on.
She still denies it and supports him to this day.
Wow.
While he was in jail, he repeatedly threatened to kill the guards. And he made really derogatory remarks about the Daniels family, which really pisses me off.
Yeah.
And he boasted he was a, quote, collector of souls, and that he wasn't done with his collection.
Oh, fuck off.
Right?
What an asshole.
Such a badass.
Yeah, right?
On July 6, 1990, while awaiting trial, Scott, along with 9 other inmates, escaped from the Toombs County Jail in Georgia.
Really?
Yes.
10 people escaped.
Yes.
That's some lockdown security right there. How the fuck did that happen?
I don't know.
Wow.
That's what I read in one article. It said, along with 9 others.
Wow.
So I'm going with it.
Mm-hmm.
In his empty cell, they found 75 weapons that he'd made from unscrewing wire cages, smoke, and fire alarms.
Wow.
Trekking dogs and helicopters were used to capture all of the inmates within hours. Now, prior to his trial, a forensic psychologist examined him, and he was diagnosed with severe borderline personality disorder. He had 8 of the 9 symptoms, but he wasn't diagnosed with anything else.
Really?
Yeah, he wasn't.
Hmm.
These symptoms included suicide attempts, outbursts of uncontrollable anger, and extreme efforts to avoid perceived abandonment. Kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
On August 13th, 1999, Scott's trial began. The jury was made up of 5 women and 7 men. Prosecutors presented DNA evidence, fingerprints, plus Scott's confession to the jury. Scott's attorneys tried to argue that he was mentally insane at the time and also mentally retarded, but there were experts that testified he was not slow. He didn't fit the...
He didn't have any of those disabilities.
No.
Yeah.
He was just crazy.
I guess.
Which isn't a mental illness.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. On September 3rd, after 20 minutes of deliberation, the jury found Jerry Scott Heidler, was guilty on all counts. The penalty phase only lasted 2 hours before the jury announced their decision. The foreman read it. He said, quote, "We have shared in this with you, and like you, it has changed our lives forever. Yesterday and today, we held hands and prayed for courage and guidance to do the right thing," end quote. Jerry was sentenced to death 4 times over.
Wow.
He was given an additional 110 years for the kidnapping and sodomy. That's the first time that Scott broke down and cried as he was taken away by the guards.
What a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Cried for himself.
Corey and Amanda, if you remember, they were biological siblings. They are now living with Kim Daniels' former foster parents.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Brooke and Erica are with Danny Daniels' sister. And little Gabrielle, he was only 10 months old at the time. He was adopted out of state.
Oh, how sad.
Yeah, this is a really sad story. Makes me really angry.
Yeah. This is a stupid crime. I mean, they're all stupid, but this is just really senseless.
There's really not any motive.
No, he just felt like doing it because I'm thinking, well, maybe he broke in to steal shit.
But he didn't.
But he didn't.
No, he just wanted to kill them.
I guess.
I think he was just so hurt and felt abandoned.
All they did, though, was show him kindness.
I mean, most speculate he felt rejected by Jessica.
Yeah, probably.
But still, yeah.
Probably. And, don't come here because of Jessica, too, I guess. But
that was months earlier.
Yeah. This is messed up. I'm sorry about this story. This is just...
I know. And I have a hard time when there's children involved. So anyway, I want to thank you guys all for taking the time to listen.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
We appreciate you guys so much.
For sitting through.
You have no idea.
Oh, fuck. Anyway.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah. Anyway, if you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe/follow button on your favorite app. You can find more of these awesome episodes that are not released to the public by becoming one of our Patreon members. You can go to patreon.com/TNT Crimes. We have, almost 200 that are minis and fulls in total that you can listen to. And you also would get episodes like this as an early release and ad-free.
Ad-free.
No one wants to hear ads.
I know.
I don't like ads. You can also go to our website, crimesandconsequences.com, to find pictures of this case and all of our other episodes. We also have some episodes that are only online. If you search for them, you can find them. We have social media, Instagram and Facebook.
At Hardcore True Crime.
Hardcore True Crime. And we have some shout-outs. These shout-outs are just for our Apple subscribers. And they subscribe to us by going to our Apple channel and just hitting that tiny button. Click.
Subscription.
We have Jen H., Jessica D., Shanae R., and her boyfriend, Fabian W.
Because Fabian actually turned her on to us.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, my gosh. Thank you, Fabian. Carrie F., Emily C., and Ruby. Those are our Apple subscribers.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate and are so grateful for all of you guys that take the time to listen to us. And I hope that you still have a good day.
After listening to this story, damn.
Yeah.
What a pisser. All right. Well, until our next episode.
Do us a favor. Don't kill each other.
Please. Bye.
Bye.